Now, these are some of the statistics issued by the FBI, NYPD, LAPD, and I read all this stuff, and whenever I read articles, I try to save it. Hopefully some of it supports my positions, and that doesn't, I still save it too, and I try to read it to learn, okay? But it'll show you, now when you go through the police academy, most guys are taught, when I went through, 25-yard target and 50-yard targets. Okay, 50 yards with a pistol is pretty tough, okay? 25 yards is a comfortable area. I wouldn't want anybody shooting 50 yards with a handgun, okay? It's pretty far distance. They never train at the real distance of engagement, okay? And you can't see this, but you guys can come up and look. This was law enforcement officers killed by firearms by the FBI. It shows from 1991 to 2000, the overwhelming majority of incidents were between 0 and 5 feet, 6 and 10 feet. Distances in which New York police officers were involved in shooting 0 to 2 feet, 2 yards, and it just goes on and on. The interesting thing is, it shows the hit probability of the police officers. Guys that are on the range, okay, and I'm going to show you some targets in a second, they are hitting 80–90% of the time. When they're in gun battles at this close distance, what do you think the hit rate is?
15%.
20%. Hit rates, 19%, 15%, 17%, 9% for NYPD, and for Miami-Dade was a little bit higher. They're like 36%. I guess they're better shots down south than us northern people, okay? So, you know what I mean? So, but it's still pretty bad, okay? Why is that? Okay, and my theory is because their training is not tactical, okay? Their training is not one that it's a fixed position. They're not dealing with people that are moving, okay? And that's what we're going to talk about the next area, is why it's such a low rate is because they have not been properly trained, as I'm about to train you, on how your eyes see and how your eyes react to stress. Because I'm going to tell you what happens. They have a 90% hit rate, and I had Mike mess this up. Where did you put my target, Mike? There it is. Okay. Not Mike Gordon. Mike Chef. Okay. When I go to teach the firearms range courses, I show this. And I say, now this was 50 yards. This was me moving with an AK-47 hitting the target. And I say, you know, what is this? And I've had a couple guys go, wow, that's really good shooting, okay? And I say to them, no, this is called a false sense of security. Okay, it's called a false sense of security. Why? Because I think that in a stressful situation, I'm going to be able to duplicate that. Okay, and you're not. This is a Q target. They call it an FBI Q target, and if you can see it, it's got real holes in it. I took this from an FBI agent, okay? This is what most police officers will shoot, okay? And I'm not bragging to show that I'm cutting the center out of the target. Mike will tell you, him and I are probably on the range at least once a week, 5 times a year, whether it's raining, snowing, whether it's 10 degrees out or it's 100 degrees out. We're out there all the time, and John's with us regularly too, okay? Just practice, practice, practice. This is what they normally shoot on a stopped. You know, they're standing there, the target's not moving, and then what happens? The target starts to move. And the police officer, or the FBI agent, he knows he's hitting the target 90% of the time. So he gets in the gun battle, Eddie's moving, just like go that way, and I go to shoot him, and as you're going to see in a few seconds, he's not been taught how his body is dealing with visual situations. So he fires a couple rounds, and he either hits him, and he doesn't drop him, and then he goes into default mode, and he dumps the clip, and he hasn't hit. Mike and I were discussing this, where there was a situation where he was saying that police officers went in, and they fired off like, 100 rounds, and nobody got hit. Why? Because the target is moving, they don't understand what they're seeing, they're not processing the information correctly, and it's a handgun, okay? Excuse me, Sensei? Yeah, the adrenaline gets pumped up, and when I went through the academy, nobody had me running around the the parking lot to get that heart pumped up, okay? And so that's why I think that's why a lot of police officers, and if you watch any of the videos, you'll see that. You'll hear pop, pop, and then they go pop, 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 pop. Because they can't understand why the guy hasn't gone down, and they go into default mode, and they automatically empty the clip, okay? Now, this is a little bit out of order, so you're gonna have to give me a second.
No, we'll edit this out.
That's fine, okay? What modern science has been able to prove is that the way our eye takes in information when we see things, we see it as a straight movement. That's not how the eye operates. The eye has 6 muscles, so the eye is constantly doing this. So when the eye is looking down a straight line, and I don't know if you can see that on the video, but we're going to put this out on the internet. Your eye is getting an up and down kind of image, and your brain clears it up, okay? So that's the first thing. You have to understand how the eye is seeing. So the eye is constantly jumping, it's picking up information, okay? And the eye jumps rapidly 3 times a second, the brain cleans up the jerky movement, and we see a stable environment, okay? And a lot of times, and according to research at MIT, what we are seeing at the present moment is not a fresh snapshot of the world, but rather an average of what you've seen in the past 10 seconds. So what you are seeing when there's moving, especially when you're under stress, is not 100% accurate, okay? There's actually a delay factor when you are watching a moving target. And what I do, and Eddie, stand behind me, you'll see what I told you, okay? I want everybody to watch the tape. Okay? Did you see what I'm talking about? I explained to him what's happening is our eyes go into what they call a search mode, and then they finally do a deployed acute eye process where you're doing a visual mode. If you can see what I see, everybody is kind of like catching up to the target, seeing it, and then processing it. And while I continue to move, I'm watching your eyes. Your eyes are constantly kind of catch up to this target. So if I'm running, you are constantly catching up, and you're trying to process what is happening. So you're kind of lagging behind me, okay? In the Marine Corps, you're taught to lead the shot. The problem is when he's really close, it's pretty hard to do, okay? When he's 100 yards out, he's 300 yards out, he's 1,000 yards out, it's very easy to lead the target. But when he's pretty close, and I could see it with everybody's eyes, that's why I wanted Eddie to see it for the first time. You literally, I'm seeing the eyes are doing this, you're constantly catching up to my target, and you're processing the information. And according to the lag time is 180 millisecond. So what's happening is you're processing the information, okay, and if I'm moving, by the time you see the image, by the time it goes into your brain, by the time you process and make a decision to pull the knife, or throw the punch, or pull the firearm, and you react to what you think is here, it's not there anymore. It's not there anymore. That's why police officers, they go to fire the weapon, and they're doing a center mass hit, and they're hitting him here in the shoulder. That's why guys that are boxers, MMA guys, okay, Muay Thai fighters, he's moving, and I go to throw the punch. By the time I throw the punch, I'm aiming right at his head. He's not there because he's moving. So there's that delay factor, okay? So what you really want to do, and I learned this from Sensei, watching him use the sword and other weapons, when he's using the sword, when he draws a sword and he tries to cut me, he's constantly, come over here, Eddie. It's not a it's a steel blade, but it's not a live blade. What I watch Sensei do a lot is he's cutting ahead of me with the movement. Okay, so if Eddie's moving that way, he's drawing the sword and actually cutting ahead. And I watch Sensei's eyes when he is tracking movement, and he doesn't probably realize he's doing this. He will now because he just saw my course. What he is doing, if Eddie is moving, if he's going this direction, so you go toward Sensei, you want to watch this shoulder, You want to watch the forward shoulder, not do what your body's doing and you're trying to catch up all the time, okay? So if you're reacting to his moving shoulder, so he's going like this, if you react to this shoulder versus this shoulder, you're going to hit the target. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? So whether it's a knife, okay, because if I'm going at him with the knife and he's moving that way, he gets out of the way. If I had a handgun and I'm going to go center mass, by the time I process the weapon and I shoot, he's not there anymore, okay? So what you've got to start doing when you're in the dojo or whatever you're doing, start training to work off of the moving shoulder, like the ship. You want to do the, what's the front of the ship called? Navy guys?
Bow.
The bow, not the stern, okay? Good thing you're here, Joe. Okay. He's the one that didn't yell. He was in the Navy. So everybody get that? So when you see a moving target, you want to start teaching yourself to start focusing on the moving shoulder. Whether you're throwing a punch or you're using a spear or a Joe or a knife, okay? The other thing that you'll hear me use a lot, and I'm going to go back to the original technique to show you a couple things that we did. There's something called a cone of vision, okay? I didn't learn this in martial arts. I didn't learn this in firearms. I learned this being an attorney, okay? Vince is shaking his head. He knows exactly what I'm about to tell you. I could never figure out why people fall. You know why people fall? Because they generally don't see what's in front of them. Why? Because we see what's called a cone of vision. Everybody, picture a megaphone, okay? What you normally see is 180 degrees, okay? The cone of vision is usually about 60 degrees. This way and this way. So if there's something in front of me, most of the time you don't see it. And if, the peripheral vision is not as sharp as everybody thinks, because they've now done research on the retina, and in the center of the eye, it has the most acute cones to see things. And you don't even see three-dimensional. So if I look at Eddie, and I'm looking straight at him, I'm seeing more dimensional here than on the outside, okay? So cone of vision, you'll hear me talk about that. And the other thing is, when you get in stressed out environment, you start to see with less and less and less cone. And I'm going to show you how to get over that in a few seconds. So how many of you have seen a football game? It was funny, I was just watching the Eagles game a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about that the quarterback, he's here, and he doesn't see the receiver going, hey, throw the ball. You know why? Because he didn't take my class. Because if he took my class, he would know that what he's supposed to be doing is scanning the entire area. Because what's happening is, the rusher's coming at him, and he's now using, 2% of his cone. It actually shrinks as you get more stressed out. So when you're in a tactical situation, you have to just assume that you're not seeing the full picture. How many of us have been doing randori in here, and you're under attack, 2-3 people are coming at you, and all of a sudden Eddie just shows up out of nowhere? Does it happen to everybody in here? Okay? He's not a ghost.
Eddie showing up out of nowhere?
Yeah, well, that's usually Vince. Usually Lee, okay? It's usually presto, magic, okay? So what I'm saying to you is, because what he's doing, he's coming around the cone of vision, and he's sneaking right in on me, okay? Same thing with a punch. Everybody says, oh, I got a sucker punch, okay? He didn't get sucker punched. He's, Mr. Miyagi, everyone remember Mr. Miyagi? What did he tell Danielson? He said, look in eye, look in eye. Well, Mr. Miyagi didn't take my class either, because if he took my class, he would have realized you don't look in your attacker's eyes. Because if I look in, just in case you slipped, if I look at his eyes, I can't see the punch coming from underneath the cone. I just can't see it. Okay, and we're going to practice this in a few seconds. So what you want to do, and one of the things that Sensei told me from the beginning, is we always watch here. Because if I'm here with my cone of vision, I can see the hands and I can see his feet, okay? So what you want to do, and the other thing too, is you're protecting your jaw. And you're protecting your artery, especially with a knife fight. I'd rather take a blade to the face than to my throat. We're going to talk about that in a second. So if I'm like this, I'm now protected from getting punched in the face, or if he's got a knife, I'm protecting my windpipe and I'm protecting my arteries, okay? But I'm reassessing my vision, so it's here you want to practice, okay? Does everybody get that? All right? So, you know, you want to make sure that you do that, all right? So, let's practice that for a few seconds and then we'll get to the tracking. So whenever you get a partner, okay, and I want you to have him throw punches from under the cone, and you'll see exactly what I mean. Now don't cheat, don't scan down. So look at the top of his head, look at his face, and then look at the midstream, and you'll see that you can see his attack much better. So just try it for a couple minutes.